All right, guys, so here is what my bathroom countertop is looking like before. It's just that cheap linoleum. Is it linoleum? I believe so. Anyways, I started off just sanding the surface really well, just making scratches on it so that the paint would adhere to it. And yeah, just going along doing that, scuffing up the surface is something that I would suggest prior to painting. And then after this, I went along with a rag and got up all of the dust. Definitely want to make sure you get all that up before you start laying your paint. And I went in with this Ultra Cover. It was just cheap semi-gloss paint. I don't want to say I kind of regret using that one just because it had like a blue tint to it, but I got it covered up and it turned out fine. But I just using some old paint that I had left over, and I did put down a strip of paint on the glass just to keep it separate from the actual countertop, because the rubber part where the glass meets the countertop was really thick. I ended up pulling off the tape eventually because of that, and just doing it by hand. But if you want to tape off your surfaces, if you're not really, that good at painting, that's also something that I would suggest doing as well. Just taping off your, the side of the wall and then where the glass meets the countertop. And I did 3 layers of this base white coat. I didn't film me doing all the layers because it was really redundant. Right here, I'm showing you where the mirror meets the countertop. And obviously this is the first coat, so just waiting for that to dry. And then the next morning, this is how the coats ended up looking. Turned out okay. I'm going in with elephant gray here. This is the darkest color that I started out with. You definitely want to make sure that you start with the darkest color first. And right here, I'm just showing you guys the technique that I did. I just took a paper towel, I wadded it up, and I used that as a little sponge. You can use those like coral sponges, those like orange coral sponges that you use to clean with. Those make a really nice pattern too. But if you don't have that, you can easily just do this. Wad up a tissue paper, not tissue paper, don't use tissue, paper towel. And I'm going to zoom in here to show you guys the technique that I'm doing. All I'm doing is just patting, just going around and literally just patting it. Just making little marks. And yeah, that's it. So when you're doing this, you just want to make sure that it's evenly distributed. You don't want to get like too many dark colors and dark spots in one spot. Spread it around and don't push like too hard. Just like tap it kind of. And here I'm just showing you a wider view of how I'm bringing it along throughout the countertop. And yeah, just going with the flow, tap, tap, tapping. And I got these paints from Walmart. They were, when I bought them, they were like $1 a piece. I know we're in inflated times now, and I'm sure they're a little bit more than $1, but they're just in the craft section at Walmart, and I just bought a bunch of grays and whites. This one here is the Granite Gray. This is the second darkest color that I'm going in with, and I'm just using the same method. I'm just pouring some paint, grabbing a paper towel, and using that sponge tap method and going along and just trying to make it blend. And how I kind of described this is like, when you're putting on your makeup, for us ladies out there, I don't know how to do makeup, but when you're like blending, using the beauty blender on your face, that's kind of like the same concept of what you want to do here. Keep in mind also that although after all of your layers of colors, it might look light, Once you lay your polyurethane or gloss, whatever you decide to use, those colors will be darker. They will heighten with the gloss or polyurethane. So definitely keep that in mind when you're picking your colors. And the last two colors I went in with was this antique parchment. Both of them were white. That last one was an off-white, and then this one was white. And what I like to do with the white is I like to go over the darker spots, as you can see here, and I'm kind of just tapping over the darker spots with the white just to make it blend so the dark colors don't look as splotchy. The wall line here of where the counter met the wall was really thick, so I just went in with some extra white paint and touched up the imperfections there. And as you can see, the colors are really blended. It looks pretty good. I went ahead and sanded this. I did one more sand to make sure everything was smoothed out before I started my epoxy process. So these are the prices at Home Depot. I went with the Famo Wood Glaze Coat that you'll see it in the next clip. One thing that I will say, if you don't feel like messing with epoxy, polyurethane is another great option to go with. And to be honest, I kind of wish that I went with polyurethane on this project, but that's okay. I decided to go with epoxy, and this isn't my first time working with epoxy. I wanted to see how this brand would turn out. Because I've had problems with like bubbling in the past, I wanted to see, maybe this would be different. It was not, but that's okay. One thing I did wrong in the past was I rushed through mixing the epoxy. Do not do that. You have to stir the epoxy for 12 minutes straight and stir at a constant, slow, consistent pace. I apologize for the background noise. Another thing I did wrong here was I just kept pouring, and I poured over here on the right, which I wouldn't suggest doing. Work on like sections at a time. The epoxy will start to harden in 15 minutes. So you want to make sure, like, start one section, pour it, and start like spreading it out and do it that way. Don't pour everything on the countertop and then get to it when you can. Definitely don't do that. So after this, you are going to want to go along with like a lighter and just hover over any bubbles that you see and try to pop them. Definitely do not take the fire. First of all, epoxy is very flammable, so be careful. But what I did was I just took a lighter and I just hovered over like the bubbles, and you'll see them just pop. And that's definitely something that you want to do. Just go along, look where you see any bubbles. Like I said, hover over them, clean up the edges, because you will have like blotchy spots if you don't do that. So that's all I'm doing here, just cleaning everything up. I also wanted to mention that Rust-Oleum can of paint that I use for the base coat. I believe it was like $15, and I got that from Home Depot as well for that can. It was like 13 or 15 bucks, something around there. So not very expensive at all. All right, guys, we are finally done. It is the next morning. Say hi, buddy. And here it is. Looks pretty good. I'm not really a fan. I know like the off-white kind of looks like really yellow on camera, like an ugly pea yellow, but it really isn't that bad in person. Like it kind of blends pretty good. But the bubbles, were a problem. I didn't get them all popped or anything, and it is a little bubbly, but that's okay. I don't think it turned out too bad. What do you guys think? Let me show you the sides here. See, I made sure I got all the edges, and yeah, such a cool, cheap way to upgrade any countertop. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. I hope you have a great day.